What's up everybody, Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to do another review of the Hasbro Marvel Legends Captain America Civil War Wave Red Guardian. Alrighty, so folks, I grabbed this off of Amazon.com for probably about 11 and a half bucks, and it was worth every penny. Not because I like Red Guardian, and not even because it's that great of a figure, but I really needed pretty much everything on this body mold for a custom I have planned. Now, don't get super excited. This would only be my second custom action figure. I'm really just kind of getting my feet wet into that world, so stay tuned. Hopefully, I'll post that up someday, probably in the next year. But we're going to crack this guy open and we're going to take a look and we're going to do a review just like we normally do. And we'll see if this figure is any good or not. Alright, so we're going to go through the articulation pretty quickly on this figure because it is the Bucky Cap mold, so there's nothing all that new on here. But let's take a look at the head first. It's on a ball peg with a hinge, and he can look up. Actually, I'm a little surprised at how little he's able to look up. And the head is popping off because, yeah, see, I would expect that he could be able to look up a little bit higher. But you can see that the sculpt of the back of the head is actually, I believe, what's causing him to not be able to look up nearly as far as he should. He can look all the way down, get that chin into the chest, which is good. Side to side, there's no issues there. I can't complain. And then he's not really, I mean, there's a little bit of tilt, but not much there. Moving into the shoulders, he's got a ball peg with a hinge, and he can get his arm all the way out, which is decent. And he's got full rotation of the shoulder, which is very good. There's an upper bicep swivel, and that works fairly well, though it looks a little bit weird. Double jointed elbows, and those get him just over 90 degrees. He's got a peg joint and a hinge in his wrists, and those work fairly well. It is a little bit harder to get his wrist to move up, but I don't have any problems with that. In the torso, he's got a hinge joint in the upper torso, and that actually, it works relatively well. I do wish that it could have clicked one more, so he's not able to crunch as much as I'd like. Backwards arch is decent enough, no problems there. And then he's got a waist swivel, and there is no problem with the waist swivel. Moving into the hips, he's got T-jointed hips, and he can do the splits just about this much. Pretty standard especially for this body mold. I definitely wish that he could go further. And he can kick forward just about 90 degrees out, which is pretty good. No problems there. He can kick back just a tiny little bit, so that's always going to be an issue with this body mold. He's got an upper thigh swivel, peg joint up there, and that works really well. The paint, there is no paint, so you're not going to have any issues with that. Double jointed knees, he's able to bend his knees all the way in half, which is great. There is an upper shin boot cut, which it cuts right at the top of the boot, which is awesome. And he's got his ankle, which can move back really well, forward a little bit, and then he has an ankle rocker, which works very, very well. So overall, I'm happy with the articulation. We've seen it on this body mold so many times now. So there's nothing really surprising, aside from his head not being able to look up nearly as much as I would like. There's not a lot really to talk about with the sculpt of this Red Guardian figure. It's pretty much all the Bucky Cap body mold, but we'll take a look at the head because that's actually a fairly unique sculpt as far as I can tell, though I don't know how actually unique this is. I think we've seen part of this head before just without the mohawk, but it's sculpted fairly nicely. There's no real complaints that I have. It's a fairly generic looking figure as it is. I do like the cuffs that he's got on his arms, and the hands are nice enough, and the belt is it's a nice floating belt. It's sculpted well. The boots, we've seen the feet before, we've seen these boots before, but it looks good on this figure. So overall, I'm happy enough with the sculpt. I'm more happy because I plan on using this body for a different custom that I have planned. So it's the perfect body mold for that. Um, as far as Red Guardian, it's a good body mold for that character from what I know of the character. So I'm happy with it. So you can tell that Hasbro tried to do the paint right on this figure, and we'll take a look at the head first. They painted it fairly nicely. The eyes are, I guess, fairly cleanly painted. I mean, it's just white. The left one has a little bit of too much paint going up into the top portion. There is definitely some sloppiness around the ears and around the edges of the cowl, but overall it's painted, satisfactory, I guess. And then the rest of the body, the star here, you can see that it's kind of not a really crisp look, but there is some nice shading aside. Oh, here's some pretty messy paint on the arm where they got some white on there. Here in the whatever that's called, there's some messiness there. So that, I mean, there's definitely some quality issues. The belt is painted nice enough. I mean, it's just red and white, but you can see there's a little bit of a blip where they missed, or they actually got the paint on the wrong spot. So there's no shading on any of the white. The chest, they did a decent enough job shading the chest. But the rest of it is just kind of a okay. The back star is kind of messy. So overall, it's, I don't know, I'd probably give it a 2.5 stars out of 5 for paint. It's just nothing all that spectacular. Alrighty, so the Red Guardian comes with one accessory, and that is it, and it is his shield. And I have to say, it's a nice shield. It's, nothing too spectacular. It's got a nice star in the middle. The paint isn't as crisp as I'd like it to be. You can see there's a little bit of bleeding into the red. It has this clip-on piece so that can be clipped onto his wrist, and then that just hinges to allow the peg to be displayed for that being able to get pegged into his back so he can store that on his back. So no alternate hands, no unmasked head or anything like that. I wish that we would have gotten that. In those terms, I would probably rate this figure at like a 1.5 to 2 stars, simply for just giving us the shield and no extra hands. I have to say this Red Guardian figure is kind of a letdown in the sense that we don't get much for accessories. The paint is pretty weak. The sculpt is very, very bland. There's not a whole lot unique to this figure. Articulation-wise, that side of it is very, very good. It's very solid. So it's not a letdown in terms of action figure articulation, but sculpt, paint, accessories, it definitely is a bit of a letdown. I wouldn't pay, and I didn't pay very much for it. I grabbed them for about 11.5 bucks, and I definitely don't recommend paying full price for this guy. I'm going to use this most likely as a custom figure, so I don't really need Red Guardian in my collection. I don't know of many people that absolutely must have them, but if you need to get them, make sure you get them cheap. And until next time, make sure you hit subscribe, like me on Facebook, and I will see you later.
Tetris